Well, welcome to the show.
This is our view from the bench.
Well, welcome to the show. I'm Brendan, Jason Kelsey's lost t-shirt.
And I'm Corey, football goal post netting guy, and happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We made it. Well, I made it. I know you are busy on the weekends, but we made it through the week. And you had one less thing to do this week. So
I was going to say, we weren't even supposed to be here today, but Morrissey
True.
canceled his concert for tonight, so I had the day off, and here we are instead of having to do it Saturday night.
All right, which is great because that gives us, the viewers a little bit more time to review before the big games this Sunday, which I am just stoked to talk about, by the way. How was your week, man?
Well, because I didn't have to work today, it got a little bit better, I can tell you that.
Nice.
Not so bad. I worked the watch party yesterday at Brewery X for the Ducks, which they lost in overtime to Dallas. No shocker there, unfortunately. But yeah, I was at the Brewery X, had a nice little time watching the game, and I had my laptop working on some other stuff for work, a little bit of the podcast stuff, and also watching some basketball at the same time on TNT through Hulu. So
Hey.
I was doing a lot of stuff yesterday while working, technically, which was nice. But
Nice.
yeah, other than that, pretty easy week. How about you, sir?
Kind of same. I've been sick still. Everybody knows I've been trying to get over this damn illness. So work from home most of the week, try to keep it chill, got stuff done, but just trying to keep it low key and rest, man, because I'm tired of being sick. I've literally been sick pretty much this entire year so far, and January is almost over. So I'm just excited to be taking this antibiotics, and hopefully it keeps kicking in, and I can just get over this, dude, so I can get back to normal.
Yeah, that would
Just
be
want to
nice.
be normal. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it was a pretty chill week. So looking forward to championship weekend. We got a lot to talk about today. But before we get into anything, we'd appreciate it if you're not already. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode when we upload. And Corey, you already know what I'm going to ask you.
Uh-oh.
What are they supposed to do if they happen to like what they're watching?
Oh, yeah. If you like what you're watching, please smash that like button so we know that everybody's enjoying what we're doing. And then it'll give us some. If you have any notes, obviously, feel free to leave them too in the podcast as comments on YouTube or even on Apple and Spotify. So if you have anything you think we should add or subtract, please let us know. We're always looking for new ideas.
Yeah. We'd love to chat with you. Whatever, if you like our takes, dislike our takes, have your own takes, let us know. We'd love to review them. So. But yeah, that's pretty much all we know. We love again. Subscribe. It's free. It's freaking free. Just do it for us, man. Throw a little thumbs up, man. That's free too. It don't cost you a dang thing. It definitely help us out.
Yeah, no paywall
but
on
let's
this podcast.
yeah, exactly. But let's just jump right in. We're gonna start with the main event, especially the one for this weekend. The NFL Conference Championship Weekend preview is upon us. I know everybody's been talking about it all week long. Obviously, there's only 2 games this upcoming weekend, so there's not much else to talk about as far as sports radio and sports television. So we'll get into it ourselves here. We got the Chiefs visiting the Ravens, AFC title game. That's the first matchup on Sunday afternoon. Starts noon Pacific. Make sure you don't miss it. I'm stoked for this, bro. I know that you had the Ravens preseason making it to the Super Bowl. Are you sticking with your pick?
I've been really going back and forth thinking about it. It's so hard. It's one of those things, picking against Mahomes is like picking against Brady back in the day. It's just hard to do because until I know Burrow obviously beat him once and Brady obviously beat him once still in New England, but that was also the first time Pat made it to an AFC title game. This is his 6th straight, I believe. It is just kind of crazy that he's even in this spot and the Chiefs are here because especially after the way the season went, they didn't really play their best ball, especially in like the first half, maybe even 10 games, but they've kind of figured some things out. Not great on offense, but enough that some of the wide receivers have finally started catching balls and not doing anything stupid. Although Hardman last week had 2 fumbles and 1 could have been really costly.
Yeah.
It's weird. I keep going back and forth. I think I'm still going to pick the Chiefs just because, again, it's hard. No, I don't. I can't. I picked the Ravens to get to the Super Bowl and win this whole thing back in August when we did our preseason pick. So I think I'm going to stick to that. The Ravens defense is the best defense in football going into this. They have been great. I know Roquan Smith has honestly, he's kind of playing like a mini Ray Lewis out there as far as the defense goes for the Ravens and how they've kind of built their teams in the past. But at the same time, Mahomes in his career against the best defense, including the playoffs, is 6-1. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs win this game, but I'm still going to stick with my my gut that, well, I wouldn't even say gut more at this point, more of my brain back in August. I'm gonna
Your
pick the
weird
Ravens.
intuition.
Yeah, it's just weird. I'm just gonna stick with it. I think it's gonna be really close, though. I don't expect this to be a runaway. Again, would not be shocked if the Chiefs pulled this off, just because they are who they are. They're a dynasty for a reason, or at least Pat, Kelsey, and Andy Reid at coach are a dynasty. The defense is
Mhm.
much better than it has been in their previous
Way
years, where
better.
they've even won Super Bowls before. So I would not be shocked if they win, but I think I have to stick with my preseason pick. I'm going to go Ravens 27-24 in just an all out battle. I'm kind of mad that it's the first game of the day. I feel like this should have been the afternoon game, though.
Yeah, this is like a lot of people on all the talking heads on TV kind of are, I guess, in agreement that this is the winner. The winner of this game should win the Super Bowl. So
Yeah,
in essence, this is almost the Super Bowl. I know they got to play the game. I'm not trying to put down any of the NFC teams, but yeah, I couldn't agree more. I agree with you with oh my gosh, what was his name? The linebacker that you said?
Roquan Smith.
Roquan Smith. Him and having Patrick Queen there is similar to that Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis combo that you talked about. They have number 14. I forgot his name right now, but that's like, their strong corner, or not the strong corner, but like a
Hamilton?
good corner. Hamilton. Yes, thank you. It's similar to like a Ed Reed style in the DB. I know Ed Reed was a safety, but so they know the building blocks of a great defense. And the other caveat to that is, as much as Patrick Mahomes was able to get through Miami and able to get through Buffalo. Weird that he only played the NFC East up, or AFC East up until this
That's
point.
true. I didn't think about that.
Every single one of those teams were missing key pieces on defense. Nobody is missing for the Ravens. They have everybody they need. They have the team built a very certain way. Ryan Clark was talking about it today or yesterday on NFL Live. I'm sorry, on Get Up, and they were talking about how the center of it, the line and the linebackers are, as much as linebackers have seemingly become less significant in today's NFL game because there's so much more passing. Receivers and backs are just way too agile for some of the linebackers there. It's still they think that they're going to be able to make that difference. That's the heart of the team is right in the middle of the field. And so it looks like Patrick Mahomes is going to have to play outside the numbers. It's going to be hard for Isaiah Pacheco to get yardage running up the middle like he was able to the past few weeks. So, it's going to be pretty reliant on Patrick Mahomes. A funny stat, not a funny stat, a weird stat that I actually had seen. This is actually going to be the first ever playoff matchup between two former MVPs, both under the age of 30, in Lamar Jackson
Oh,
and Patrick
damn.
Mahomes. Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. Another added benefit for the Ravens on this one is Mark Andrews was just activated off the IR,
That
so
is
he'll
true.
be ready to roll. That twin tight end set with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, when they already have Zay Flowers and OBJ attracting some attention on the outside, it's going to be pretty lethal. I know that the run game isn't as dominant as it has been previously, but Lamar Jackson can take off for 60 at any point. So you got to just be careful. You're basically going to be spying him pretty much the entire time. But the cool thing is now not in the same speed. But the Chiefs planned for that last week when they played Josh Allen. They constantly had a spy on him because he's also one that can kind of get out of the pocket and make plays if necessary.
Very
I
true.
I do believe the Ravens should win. The NFL is of course rigged and planned for the Ravens and the Niners to be in it. So because the Super Bowl thing. Well, I have a little caveat to that one once we cover the other game. So yeah, I do. I'm with you. I think the Ravens win. I'll be rooting for the Chiefs though, for sure. Still, like I said, say it time and time again. Big dynasty guy. So rooting for him, but I do think, and I think it's gonna be a little bit bigger because this defense is pretty stout. I'm going Ravens 28-20.
Wow. Okay. Either you have them covering the spread. I mean, the spread's only 3.5, which essentially is a toss up because when you're the home team, you usually get a field goal right off the bat. So it's technically a half point spread at that as at the end of the day. So man, it's Baltimore's first home game for an AFC title game as well. Even though they've won 2 Super Bowls previously, they've done both of those wins on the road in the AFC title game. So
Hmm,
I did read that I think Ray Lewis is going to be there. Ed Reed's going to be there pregame.
dude.
T Pain's going to be there. There's going to be
Yeah.
just the sideline is going to be even more, I don't know, just out of control than most games we've seen. Like I said, I'm going with the Ravens, but I don't feel great about that because it's hard to pick against Mahomes and the Chiefs. They're just so good. And the fact that they've been to 6 straight AFC title games alone tells you, like, when it comes playoff time, they figure out a way to get it done. Now, you did mention they're going against a defense that's fully healthy compared to what they went against the
Yeah.
Bills and the Dolphins. So I get
Hmm.
that, but I don't know, man. It's just, it's hard to pick against the Chiefs. But again, my preseason pick was Ravens to win the whole thing and Lamar to get MVP. looks like I got one of those right so far, and I'm hoping I get the second one right with the Ravens getting all the way.
That hoopla that you're talking about, all these people showing up and T-Pain performing. I think Michael Phelps is supposed to be there because
Oh
I
yeah,
think
he's
he's
a
from
Baltimore
Baltimore
native.
too. So the only thing is like, man, they sure are planning for a party. Like they feel like they've
True.
already won. Either one, they know something that the NFL is rigged, of course, like I've been saying, and they are going to win, or two, they're overlooking the Chiefs a little bit. Now, the players themselves would never say that, and
No.
obviously John Harbaugh wouldn't either, but damn, that seems to be pretty celebratory, don't you think, for just hosting an AFC title game?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would be careful because Patrick Mahomes will use anything to put on the bulletin board as something. He made a point, as you can see on the thumbnail for the previous video that we said, the Bills asked for it and they
Yep.
got what they asked for. So, kind of planning this party without technically saying that you're celebrating anything could turn into bulletin board material. There's plenty of people who have been saying that Patrick Mahomes is Jordan-esque in more ways than just his play, and also creating false narratives to be able to drive up his competitive spirit and that of his team as well. So it's going to be a good game for sure. I'm excited for it, and I couldn't agree more. I wish it was the night game. Not that I'm doing
Yeah.
anything on Sunday per se, but it'd be cooler if it was the afternoon game. The only thing I could think about is obviously it's in Baltimore and the other one's in San Francisco, so it's
Oh,
completely opposite coasts.
yeah,
That's
that's a good point. I guess that kind of makes sense then. Scheduling-wise, it would be easier to do the East Coast game first compared to the West Coast.
Right, right. I mean, then they'd be playing. Now, granted, the afternoon game starts at 3:30, so that'd be 6:30. That's a nice night game in Baltimore, but depending on how cold it
Yeah,
would be, I
but
think they're going for a nice
you
three
can't have
o'clock
a
afternoon.
12 o'clock game on the West Coast live at for football because nobody plays before 1 p.m. ever, let alone the West Coast especially. So I guess in that sense it makes sense, but I still think it is a missed opportunity for having this be the nightcap like like the Chiefs and Bills last week, which I think
Exactly.
they
Which was
talked
in New
about was
York.
the highest rated NFL game, not a Super Bowl, at any time in history of the league. So I wouldn't be shocked if that number kind of gets beat this weekend with this because this is the matchup we've all wanted to see. I mean, even though I picked the Ravens in preseason to win the Super Bowl, I did pick them to go to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs in the AFC title game. So I did get the matchup right. I just got the stadium wrong of who was the one seed and who was the visiting team. But
Not bad though.
I just hope it's a good game and not something where
Same.
one team runs away with it and it doesn't make
Which
any
can
sense.
happen. In my
Easily
opinion, it
could.
would only be Baltimore that runs away with it, though. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the Chiefs, if their defense shows up and does great against Jackson and them and slows them down, then the Chiefs offense will have a chance to kind of get
To
their thing
win.
going. But if they get down early, although the Chiefs have been down big before, but not against a defense like this. This is a whole nother ball game. And they did go to Buffalo last week and went on the road for the first time in Pat Mahomes' career in the playoffs. But I feel like Baltimore, we saw when they played the Texans last week, there was a lot of false starts early. Now, a younger team, I understand that, but still, if it's loud in there and the Chiefs can't get their offense situated and rolling, could be a long day. But it's hard to go against Pat and see of him not having a good day and at least giving them an opportunity to win this near the end.
To your point about Patrick Mahomes not really caring about whether or not he's down, just look this up because I had heard something about it. I didn't know the exact record. When trailing by 7 or more points in the playoffs in the last 5 seasons, Patrick Mahomes is 8-1.
Oh my God.
The rest of the NFL in that same time span is 11-53. So,
Oh,
which is a .172 win percentage, and Patrick Mahomes is checking at 80 at .889 win percentage, almost 89% of the time. So,
wow.
again, even if they're down, they are not out. But this one might be a little bit bigger, competition to try to overcome. Both of us are taking the Ravens. I have them by 8. You've got them by 3. And yeah, I guess it's on to figure out who they're going to play. Lions and Niners in Santa Clara,
Oh man.
Sunday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. start. I know you technically had the Niners going to the Super Bowl, so I'll ask you again. Are you sticking with your preseason picks?
Dude, these two games, even though I picked the two winners to get to this point and go on, I am torn because I feel like, well, one, there's no excuse for the Niners at this time. Purdy's coming in healthy. Debo is playing as of today. He was a full go at practice, so there's no issue of them not having all their weapons to work with. But the Lions have no pressure on them. They're not supposed to be
None.
here. They're going on the road. Everyone's picking the Niners against them. So if the biggest matchup I think that nobody's really talking about, at least I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, is going to be Aiden Hutchinson, the defensive end for the Lions, going against the left tackle Trent Williams for the Niners. Trent Williams is one of, if not the best left tackle in all of football, and Hutchinson is a real young, good defensive end. and has caused havoc. I mean, he had a couple nice hits, especially that one on Baker last week that just knocked him over and it ultimately was a sack. So that's the biggest matchup. And if they can get to Purdy early, that rhymes. That's funny. And not let them kind of do their thing that they do. I feel like Goff, Goff, having played for the Rams for a long time, has a career against the Niners that he knows them very well. Now, I know he hasn't played in the division in a couple years, but the same coordinators and the way they play, and Bosa especially, have been there a lot of the time that he played against them. Now, in his career, he's 3-6 against them, so it's not great, but it does have to be a little beneficial when you're the Lions going into this and prepping and getting your offensive game plan ahead of time, when you kind of know, or at least Goff knows more than they do probably, what to expect from the defense and what they're able to do and what they might do against him based on previous matchups. But yeah, at the end of the day, man, I just feel like the Niners are going to figure this out. I think the biggest thing is they're at home. If they were in Detroit, I'd probably feel a little better going with Goff and them, but I just feel like being at home, the Niners know this might be their last shot as far as getting to a Super Bowl with this group of guys. Eventually, the cap situation is going to hit them. I know Lynch has been fantastic working through it the last 5 or 6 years, but I feel like at some point they're going to have to be over the cap and start letting guys go and redo this whole team and the way they're situated. So I feel like the Niners might win this. Again, I don't think it's going to be a runaway. No, go
Real
ahead.
quick, I want to second because I want to go off of what you said before I forget it. There's another great matchup actually. I agree with you. I couldn't agree more between Trent Williams and Aiden Hutchinson. But let's switch it. Penei Sewell was actually graded as the highest rated tackle, just in front of Trent Williams this year, according to PFF, taking on Nick Bosa. So there's going to be that strong offensive lineman against a strong defensive lineman on both sides of the ball. So I just want to kind of add that. Sorry.
No, that is a very good point. I didn't even think about Sewell. He's damn good too. Again, the Lions have done a really good job of drafting and have a lot of young guys that have kind of built this team up. I know the GM of them got voted as one of the executive of the year possibility winners this year. So hat tipped off to him to getting this team and put together. And he used to work for the Rams, so the fact that he trusted in Goff and brought him over with him shows that he obviously has a lot of high praise for Goff. And again, Goff being to a Super Bowl before, I feel like is again another beneficial thing for him over Purdy. Purdy has not been to the big game yet, and I think Goff, if he's able to get this win for the Lions, would be the second or the fifth quarterback to take 2 different franchises to a Super Bowl appearance.
Wow,
so again,
nice.
A little bit of a positive side on Goff's end, but again, I just think the Niners are going to win this game 27-20. I don't think it's going to be a runaway in any way, even though the Lions defense, especially on the back end, isn't as good. Although Garner Johnson has back and obviously played a role last week with his interception, even if it was a tipped one. It still counts in the stats. But yeah, I think the Lions hang in, but I think the Niners ultimately get this win.
Yeah, that's a pretty good assessment. I have a stat. Let me throw this out for you. Lions were the only team this year to not allow a single running back to go over 70 yards the entire season.
Wow. Okay.
McCaffrey had 12 games where he had more than 70 yards.
Wow.
Something's got to give in this one, don't you think? I mean, it's just the other thing that I had heard over this week, and Ryan Clark actually was one of the few analysts that I seen that actually said he thinks that the Lions can and will pull this off, is that they're more of a bend, don't break kind of defense. They do give up yards, so Purdy's going to be able to throw the ball, but are they going to be able to put it in the end zone? Unless they're getting a big play from Debo or a huge play from Christian or Ayuk is open deep, they're going to struggle as they get towards the red zone. And to be fair, so will the Lions. The Niners defense, as you saw against the Packers in the previous week, were able to shut down Jordan Love unless it was a long play.
Sure.
Once they got into the red zone, it was very difficult for the Packers to score. And they're playing another NFC North team again this week. That's kind of weird. Now the Niners are playing 2 NFC North teams.
Yeah.
The Chiefs played 2 AFC East teams. So yeah, something's got to give. Debo coming back is good for the Niners and is one of the X factors that I think really pushes the Niners over the top. If Debo was going to be out, I would feel a little bit stronger in picking the Lions. But again, the Niners should win. The NFL is rigged, and they already planned for the Niners and the Ravens to be in the Super Bowl, like we talked about. Goff's still better than Purdy. I'm just going to throw it out there. That's not a knock on Brock Purdy. That's just everybody said the same thing about Jimmy Garoppolo until they didn't. So I think the biggest thing, and this is what Ryan Clark said too. Damn, I'm just pulling a lot from Ryan Clark. I agree with him a lot
Clark
this
knows
week.
what he's talking about. He won a Super Bowl.
He does. Yeah, he definitely does. We're going to figure out exactly what the Niners think of Brock Purdy when his contract's up and when it's time to pay him. Do they move on and say, you know what, let me go see if we could grab somebody else in the draft? Or do they say, you know what, this is the guy that we need. we're throwing tons of, because he deserves the money. Being picked last, it's not like he got a great contract. You know what I
No,
mean?
not at all.
So
I don't even
it's
think he
easy
makes $1
to.
million.
No, he's not. He makes $900,000 this year. So
Wow.
it's easy to be in love with a quarterback where you don't even have to pay $1 million, and you can have a $100 million defense on the other side. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, exactly.
with great weapons like McCaffrey and Debo, so a little bit easy. I'm not saying that it's easy for Purdy. You still have to make throws. You still have to be aware. You still have to study the playbook, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's just a little bit easier in that Shanahan offense. Again, we've talked about it countless times. Matt Ryan had the best season of his entire career with Mike. I keep on going Mike. Kyle Shanahan at the helm at the offensive coordinator position in Atlanta. So, again, if he could take Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo, and put them all in to become another NFC champion possibly, then I think anything can happen. Again, it's rigged. Niners win 31-27.
Okay, so we both have it as a close game. I think the spread is 7. I have them basically covering it in a
At
sense,
that
or like getting
push.
2 to 7. You have it getting not covered at all. So, and that's all I really want. I just want both these games to be good. And again, this is the same thing with this matchup as the first one. My head tells me to pick the Niners because that's what I went with preseason. But my heart kind of tells me like that'd be cool if the Lions won and got to a Super Bowl, even if they've never been to one. It'd be great to see Barry Sanders. I know Barry Sanders is going to be on the sideline probably this weekend in Santa Clara, but man, would it be great to see him and Megatron even on the sideline at a Super Bowl for the Lions and Goff, and an opportunity to kind of right his wrong from when the year the Rams lost to the Patriots.
Yeah, and I know you don't mean it like that, but it's a great play on words. But it was a lot of McVay getting out coached, not necessarily
Very true.
Goff doing terrible. I wanted to bring up though. I told you before we started, I had seen a video, so I'll conclude, unless you have other notes, we'll conclude the
I'll go for it.
championship games with this. As everybody has probably seen, the Super Bowl is already picked right ahead of time because of the colors that are in the logo, starting with the Bengals Rams, the Eagles Chiefs last year, and of course this year with the Ravens Niners with the purple and red. Somebody made a video and made this note. Whatever team has the least amount of color in the logo ended up winning. There was very little yellow in the LA logo, and that's when the Rams won. There was very little red in the Arizona logo. There's a ton of teal or green, and that's when the Chiefs won. And there's a ton of purple in this logo,
Oh
which
no.
means there's very little red, which means the stupid Niners are probably going to win. Because again, the NFL is rigged. So we
We're
shall
about to find
see.
out.
Yeah, we shall see. But we're not even to the Super Bowl yet. Right now, we are again finishing this championship weekend, and it's going to be a big one. It's going to be good. I think it's going to be good.
I hope it's 2 great games, and I hope I'm right in my picks because again, I had the Niners and Ravens in the Super Bowl to begin with in August when we did our preseason picks, but I would be okay with Chiefs and Lions. I mean, Lions in the Super Bowl again would just be a great heartfelt story. The city of Detroit just would be,
After a
head over
Michigan win,
heels. Yeah, I would say Michigan wins the national title, and less than a month later, the Lions could be in the Super Bowl with an opportunity to win their first one. It would be great, but I'm going Niners and Ravens.
yeah. How about them Pistons? How are they doing?
Oh yeah, well, they deserve something not bad, I guess, if you're gonna have 2 teams doing
Exactly
this
right.
well in other sports.
Exactly. All right, we'll move on from the games, but we'll keep it with that idea of Michigan. We're going
Yep.
to move into the NFL notes, and we're going to jump right into it. The biggest story this week was obviously former Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh is signing what we think. We don't really know the actual deal yet. Set to coach the Los Angeles Chargers. Oh my gosh! As a someone who's trying to be an LA football fan, and me not really being able to like the Rams because I kind of like the Cardinals, I am pumped for this, bro. 5-year deal. Rumors are what, between $13 and $18 million a year. But I'm just stoked to see what he could do. He is a culture changer, and I'm excited for him to change the losing cursed culture of the San Diego / Los Angeles Chargers.
Oh man, I'm with you. I was so afraid that the Chargers and the Spanoses, because their history is to not do the right thing when it's so obvious in front of them. But this time they finally got it right. They got the second interview with Harbaugh. The talk was he was going to go to Atlanta and interview with them a second time, but instead of that, they didn't let him out of the building. They get him to agree to come in. I'm with you. I mean, Harbaugh everywhere he goes, even if it's not more than 5 or 6 years in most locations, because it tends to be one of those he runs it thin after a few years. But typically in the second to third year is where he really makes the big turn. Although Michigan took a little longer, but they did get into the college football playoff the last 3 years,
Past
and then
year, yeah.
ultimately won this year. But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it's hard. I mean, the Chargers are actually going to be talked about in a good
Yeah.
way, and not just in LA now. Like they're going to get some publicity here, but also nationally because Harbaugh's going to bring that attention. One of the
As
things
he
I already
should.
talked about is they're going to face the Ravens next year at SoFi, so we get a Harbaugh Bowl right off the
Nice.
bat the first year, which will be fun.
See, NFL is totally rigged. Go ahead.
But yeah, I'm again, if you're a Chargers fan, which there's not a lot of them, there might be a lot more now. I would be kind of interested to see how many people from San Diego who kind of went against the Chargers once they left now kind of come back. I mean, Harbaugh did play for them down in San Diego for a year
Hmm.
in the late 90s, so there is a connection there to some of those fans. And maybe the fact that the Spanoses did something right and got the right guy at the right time instead of just giving it to some young coach who had no experience previously, it's hard not to
Yeah.
root for them and think that they can actually. I mean, now there is a little bit of an issue as they're going to be 20 million over the cap before the season starts, so there are going to be some changes on the roster. But I think the fact that he's there, you have Herbert locked up, so you have a quarterback. It's more of like once you get under the cap, what guys are going to be willing to take less maybe to come play because they know Harbaugh is going to be a difference maker and change that culture
Exactly.
completely and change again the coverage of this team and this organization.
Which the Chargers haven't had in ever. I mean, maybe they did with North Turner and Philip Rivers and LT down in San Diego. Was North Turner there? Am I
Yeah, he was the
remembering that
coach
right?
there
Yeah.
after they fired Shotgun, going 14 and
Yeah.
2. But yeah, North Turner, you
That's
had Gates and Philip Rivers and LT at their prime, and they had a good 5 or 6 years where they were, at least 10, 12 wins and getting into the playoffs, ultimately not
of
doing anything once they got there. But this is
course
the
not.
first time I think that other people actually have some expectations. Now, the expectations might be a little high for the first year, but with Harbaugh there, he's not going to care what the expectations are outside the doors. We've seen what he
No.
did in Michigan, even though the
Focused.
expectations were through the roof there. He just goes about doing his business. And what does the Harbaugh family say? Who has it better than us? Nobody.
Nobody.
So if you're the Chargers, you
Exactly.
got to be stoked.
Super stoked. Somewhat of a Chargers fan again, trying to be one, so I am stoked. Couple notes on his career. When he first started coaching, he led University of San Diego, to the first ever PFL conference titles.
Wow.
He led Stanford to their first ever BCS bowl victory. He led the Niners, who are already a decorated franchise, to their first playoff appearance since 1994, and I believe that was 2010 or something like that. So that
Yeah.
was about 15, 20 years almost. He also obviously just recently led Michigan to their first ever college football playoff title. So he is kind of a somewhat of a person who leads things to firsts. I think the main question is here: does Jim Harbaugh get the Chargers to their first or possible Super Bowl? Not first Super Bowl, win win an AFC Championship game? Does Jim Harbaugh get the Chargers to the AFC Championship game?
Now, okay, the contract is 5 years. I would think the second or third year would be when it happens. Like I said, the first year, I think it's going to be an improvement. They'll probably make the playoffs. I don't know if they'll win the division, depending on what happens with the Chiefs, because there's rumors of if they go off and win it, that maybe Andy Reid retires, and that could change the
Oof,
way they do things. But if he
crazy
comes, I mean,
landscape.
if he comes back, look at the coaches in the AFC West alone. Pierce obviously is in Vegas with the Raiders. You'd have Harbaugh here. You have Sean Payton in Denver, and then Andy Reid in Kansas City. So it's not going to be an easy
Nuts.
cakewalk to even win the division. But if they
He
can get
knew
into
that.
the wild card spot and even win a playoff game next year, I think that's a start of moving in the right direction for the team and the organization. And then again, if he does get them moving in that direction, maybe the following offseason is really when they're able to get a lot of guys to come in and continue building on the culture that he started. I know there's been talk of maybe David Shaw, who coached Stanford after Harbaugh left, coming in as the offensive coordinator. I know they're interviewing all different kinds of people for the coordinating positions right now. I got to think they're going to get to at least an AFC title game in the 5 years that he's there. What do you think they could do that?
I think and they can too. It's a big task, especially in the AFC. That is, in my opinion, obviously the way better conference. The teams are stacked between obviously the Chiefs that we've talked about, the Bills,
I mean, Burrow
the
coming back.
Dolphins, yeah, the Bengals, the Steelers, the Ravens, because the Steelers, if they could freaking figure out a quarterback position, they could actually do something. The Browns, the Texans, I know, sorry,
Yeah,
the Jags, if they could figure out what the heck they're doing. So the AFC is loaded. So, but I do think that he is that type of presence that can kind of get them over the hump. I'm gonna say yes within the time frame that he is there, unless something catastrophic happens, right?
yeah,
Then
true.
it's career-ending injury, knock on wood for Justin Herbert, just something catastrophic, I do think that he'll be able to do so. Yeah.
Oh
I think,
man,
dude, I'm so stoked.
the
Side note,
Charger
go
games
ahead.
went from like going to be more probably visiting fans than at every game, but I think it might kind of even out on some games. There still will be some teams, Chiefs come in, Raiders come in, will there be more fans for them than the Chargers? But I feel like this has got to be a stepping stone in the right direction. I feel like a lot of Michigan fans are going to now jump onto the Charger bandwagon and just follow Harbaugh. It's just going to be interesting to see what they do. And I know that the Chargers have one of the best social media teams. They've talked about this for the last couple of years, and you only got to think that's going to get even better with all the material that Harbaugh's going to give them.
Ton. All of his pad hitting of the quarterback before the freaking game and stuff like that. So it's pretty crazy. They had like a highlight reel of him doing that with pretty much every single quarterback. Andrew Luck at Stanford, Colin Kaepernick in San Fran, JJ McCarthy over at Michigan. So that's like his thing. Side note, speaking of Michigan, they did promote offensive coordinator Sharon
Did
Moore
see
to
that.
their head coach today. So that's good, great for him. He did a great job in the 3 games that Harbaugh was suspended, won all 3, including the Ohio State game. So huge promotion for him, and best of luck to them. Obviously, he's no Jim Harbaugh, but he learned a lot from him, and I definitely think he's going to obviously try to instill everything that he did learn from him. So, side note on that, but congrats to Sharon Moore.
Yeah, and you got to think too, because Alabama was one of those. They took a new coach outside the system instead of promoting somebody within, and then the transfer portal thing opened up, and a lot of guys have come and gone. Now that they've named him as the coach, I would think that Michigan won't have to open the portal in general because you get 30 days to decide after a coaching change. But you got to think with the continuity of them keeping somebody within the program already will help them keep a lot of those guys. Now they're going to lose a lot of people to the NFL
To
draft.
draft,
That's
right? Yeah,
that's going to happen regardless of who's they're coaching.
yeah, very true, very true. Still go blue. All right, I'm excited about the Chargers, but we will move on. Another head coach hiring, a couple more actually. We're going to start with the Bucks, though. They no, No, the other way around. Sorry, the Panthers. The Panthers are hiring the Buccaneers offensive coordinator Dave Canales as their head coach. There wasn't a lot of freaking options in, at least in my opinion, for the Carolina Panthers on this one. So, and that's not a really knock at Dave Canales. He spent this was his first season really in any sort of coordinator job beyond high school, beyond high school football, and he was the Bucks coordinator for Baker Mayfield's resurgence.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is what it is. It gives him a shot, and again, I don't think there was a lot of people really clamoring for the job, even though there might have been a handful of interviews. So, good luck to him. I mean, maybe he could do something with Bryce Young.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to hope so. At least, I mean, he got what I think I heard he got a 6-year deal when all was said and done. Which, if you're going to the Panthers, I don't know why they went 6-year deal on him because knowing their owner, he might be fired after like a year or 2 years. But you're right. The fact that he was able to get Baker Mayfield kind of on a resurgence and showing that the offense that he coordinated with him works does have a good thing for Bryce Young. But I think the interesting part is if you look at Canellis's like career, now you talked about from high school, he actually was a athletic trainer, I think, of some sort, or strength coach with SC back when Pete Carroll was there his last year. And then he followed him to Seattle and worked with him until 2022, until he took over the coordinator job last year in Tampa Bay. So a lot of ideas and probably youthful way of thinking compared to some coaches that other guys have worked with. Pete Carroll just tends to hire all the good people around him, and they
Smart
tend to
guy.
spawn off and do their own thing and do well. I think this is another thing, but another part of it too is the new GM that the Panthers hired, which was their assistant GM last year. So Dan Morgan worked with Canales in Seattle as well while he was in the scouting department and personnel for the Seahawks. So there's a
Okay.
lot of continuity there and probably the same way of thinking. But again, good luck with Tepper, man. I don't know what to tell you down there.
It's funny you say that because the Bleacher Report article that kind of made the announcement. I love clicking and reading the first few comments, and the first one was over under 1.5 seasons.
That's why I'm shocked they gave him a 6-year deal.
Yeah, that was the first. Hey, whatever, he'll get paid regardless, so
Oh,
it
I
doesn't
know,
matter to
but
him.
damn.
But the first comment was under. That was under.
I would not be
Yeah, we'll
shocked,
see.
unfortunately.
I mean, when your owner's throwing drinks at random fans for the other team, that's not the best look. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
We did show that. Check out one of our previous episodes where we talk about that. It was bad look for them. Bad luck for them. Moving on, because the Panthers are terrible. Falcons hiring Rams former defensive coordinator Raheem Morris as their head coach. They have decided to not go the Belichick route, which, to be honest with you, I think is extremely smart.
Yep.
I'm not a Falcons fan, but I think that is the best thing that they probably could have done is to not stick with Bill. He's not the same thing. He used to win. Just because he it's funny, I'm going to say this again. Ryan Clark said, just because he used to be or is the greatest coach of all time doesn't mean he's the greatest coach right now.
That's a
And you
good
can
point.
obviously see that from the previous Patriots seasons where he wasn't. He ruined Mac Jones. Mac Jones got worse the longer he was with
Yep.
Bill Belichick. Now, granted, it might have been the offensive coordinator, which was the defensive coordinator who decided he randomly knew how to work on the offense. So that I won't ever understand. But yeah, I think it's great. Had been the Rams defensive coordinator for the past 3 years, including the one where they won the Super Bowl against the Bengals. Great opportunity for him too. It's not the terrible team. The only thing they really need to figure out is, well, I don't think so, but if Desmond Ritter can play, and if not, who will?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the quarterback position. That's where it's going to start. But the fact, like we talked about, that Atlanta was what 8-9 or 9-8 this year. They were right, or 7-10, I think, maybe because that last game
7-10.
against the
Yep.
Saints.
They had
Their
3
defense
7-10s.
wasn't really that bad. So the fact that Raheem Morris can come in and kind of improve them, and again, if they can get a quarterback situation under control, I think that
They got
it's a good
weapons.
idea. Plus, I think Raheem Morris coming in instead of Belichick, he's a little more youthful and has.
Exactly.
I mean, he did coach before. He was the head coach of the Buccaneers in 2009 to 2011 when Gruden was fired and left there. But again, that was a team that was completely out of control and torn down at that point, and he went 21-38 in those 3 years. I don't really blame that on him. Plus, it was his first time as a head coach. He went to work with Sean McVay the last couple of years, probably learned a little bit more, and now is a little more understanding of what
Learned a
is
lot more.
expected and what to do in order to make a team winning. It does help going to the NFC South too, because even though the Buccaneers won the division, they only went 9-8 or whatever. So it's not like they were the division is stacked with a bunch of talent. Derek
Baker
Carr
just
from
lost
New
a offensive
Orleans.
coordinator.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Mike Evans is a free agent, so who knows who comes back there. So it kind of leaves a little more opportunity for Raheem and him to be able to coach and actually win, maybe. I think it's a good hire overall, and I'm with you. I think the Belichick thing wouldn't have made sense with him kind of not really being an offensive, not that Raheem Morris is, he's a defensive coordinator, but again, being more youthful and open to ideas compared to what Belichick is. Plus, Belichick would have probably wanted more say on the drafting and the organizational
he's bad
side,
at
which
that.
the last few years he showed he is not good at that, if not longer than that. I think Raheem's just going to worry about coaching and let the front office do their thing. I think
Which
it's a
they're
good
good at.
hire all around.
Yeah, they have great weapons. Bijan Robinson and Tyler Allinger in the backfield. They got Kyle Pitts as tight end. They got Drake London out as a wideout. They
Yep.
have weapons too, so they're not too far away. Again, I guess everyone's really far away when you don't have a starting quarterback, but I think this is a great fit for him. And again, like you had mentioned, granted he was obviously worrying about the defense, but just being around Sean McVay, you're going to learn something. Not only just about coaching in general and how to be a head coach, but you're going to be your defense, right? Practices against his offense. You're going to learn something about that offense and how, and McVay obviously knows what he's doing. So
yeah,
I think it's a great coach, great
Don't
hire.
be shocked if Bijan Robinson has a really good year. Because remember, Todd Gurley, when he was in his younger years in McVay's system, was the best running back in the league for a couple years. So hopefully
Don't run him to the ground like Gurley.
No, don't do that. But again, Kyle Pitts and Drake London, like you talked about, maybe they kind of situate the way they run things. And if they can just get somebody at quarterback besides Ritter, because I'm with you, I don't think he's the answer. I mean, they're not going to draft anybody because their
what do you think about
too good, but
Russell Wilson?
That would be, I mean, it'd be a nice veteran presence to have. I think Kyle Pitts at tight end would be a big part of that, because usually if you're a veteran, well, younger quarterbacks tend to rely on their tight ends, but Russell Wilson is not a big arm like he used to be when he was younger. So I think having a tight end like that and Bijan out of the backfield would be a huge benefit for him. Now you just got to
get him for the rest of his contract. Maybe draft somebody like you said, even if it's not a high, and work him up. Learn. Yeah, I don't know. I think that might be out there. Just something out there. Yeah.
Also, don't count out Justin Fields.
Who would you rather have?
Oh, man.
Because again, not long term.
Yeah.
Because long term, obviously, picking the younger quarterback, that's an easy one. Like, they're not the same age, they're not in the same, but they also, in my opinion, aren't the same skill level. Russell Wilson had a resurgence, in my opinion, last year from his failed season the previous year. So, who would you rather have?
The other name to look out for, though, if I had to pick between those, I think I'm going Russell.
Window.
But the other one I would count out is, depending on how he comes back from injury, is Kirk Cousins. I think he'd be perfect.
Kirk Cousins. Agree. Although I really love him slinging that freaking ball to Justin Jefferson.
That's just because you're fantasy, but you might not have Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, dude, I just like Justin Jefferson. It really doesn't even have to do with my fan. I don't have to have him on my team unless he's on the opposing team. Then something else. But yeah, it should be good. Good for him. Congrats to Raheem Morris. Going to stick with the coaching. This one's not necessarily a new hire, but the Eagles have decided to go ahead and keep Nick Sirianni as the head coach. I kind of get this, dude. I mean, just because you
Yeah.
had like a falling apart, you're not going to tear apart the entire thing. He took you to the Super Bowl. You started 10-1. Granted, you lost a bunch of games at the end of the season, got blown out in your on the road. Granted, that's the only saving grace is, well, we were in Tampa. Yeah, granted, but they suck.
True.
So,
And
it's not
Jalen
as
Hurts wasn't healthy at that point either. So there is a little
AJ
bit
Brown was
of
out, all sorts of things. So, um, the only thing is Jason Kelsey obviously retired, so it's not going to be the same team coming back. And the other thing is that defensive coordinator Vic Fangio was left the Dolphins, so they're bringing in a new defensive coordinator for the Eagles. He's supposed to be that one coming through. Apparently, he worked as a consultant for the Eagles in 2022. Um, I'm not, go Eagles, I guess. This is for art, whoop whoop. But we'll see. We'll see where this goes. They aren't winning the division next year. Oh wait, no, they might. The Cowboys aren't winning the division. That's right.
you can't win back to back. That doesn't happen in the NFC East.
What do you think about the hire, dude? I mean,
I
about
think
the
it
keeping.
I think it's good. Like you said, they just went to a Super Bowl and they started 10-1. So it's not like Sirianni completely lost and forgot how to coach the team. I think injuries, like you said, played a big part, and Jalen Hurts not having a healthy hand to throw with in the playoff game definitely played a part of it. And with Fangio, I mean, the Dolphins, once they got healthy and got Jalen Ramsey in the middle of the year, they were one of the better defenses the rest of the season. So Fangio actually knows what he's doing on that side. I think with the talent the Eagles have on that side, it on the defensive
Yes,
side
especially
makes
that
no
freaking
sense.
front seven.
Exactly. It makes no sense that they completely fell apart. And obviously the coaching had a big role in that. So I think Fangio coming in, being a more veteran coordinator on that side of the ball will definitely help. And I think the Eagles are probably right back into a division title run next year, if not into a wild card spot for sure.
It's going to be exciting, at least for Eagles fans. So we'll see. I mean, he's definitely going to be on the hot seat, though. Obviously, like if they have either a bad start or another meltdown, Eagles brass isn't necessarily the most patient. They won a Super Bowl and moved on from the head coach. So
True.
um, he's going to be on the somewhat of a hot seat. Again, I'm not saying he loses week one and then he's going to get fired, right? But
Yeah.
you definitely can't start 3-6 or even start 10-1 somehow and blow it again. That would leave a really bad taste, and
Now,
I don't think Philly would go for it.
do you think that part of the Fangio thing is if they do get off to a rough start early and they decide to let Sirianni go, Fangio has been a coach before on his own elsewhere and obviously has the experience that he can kind of step in and be the intern for the rest of the year. Is that maybe part of their thinking too?
I mean, yeah, that could be it. He wasn't very successful, but to your point, it's still experience nonetheless. I don't know. The weird thing is, I don't remember the stat off the top of my head, but when the Eagles changed defensive coordinators and defensive play callers midway through the season, and by midway, I think after they were 10-1, or no, after they lost to Buffalo, right? Or no, they just beat Buffalo, but they didn't like it. And then they change the defensive coordinators, and then they lose a bunch of games. So why did you just put the other guy back? That was just the guy that led you to 10-1. I don't quite understand it completely, especially since they, like we've talked about endlessly, acquired Kevin Byard from your team to kind of shore up the back end of that defense, and it didn't seem to make a difference at all.
Did not
So it's
help
kind
them.
of weird to me that I forgot everybody's name. Obviously, the gentleman who took over has recently been fired, but I don't know. It just seems kind of weird. But again, Fangio is good at defense. That's one thing that he has been good at. It's the head coaching gig that it's been mediocre at best. So
I think you're talking about
we'll
Matt
see.
Patricia, those who they let go, right? Which is a
Oh
former
yeah,
Patriot Belichick guy, which none of the Belichick
none of them are good.
tree ever does well. So if you're gonna hire anybody, just hire Belichick himself. Don't worry about any of his guys. They don't
Yeah,
do
higher
very.
under the Reed or the Shanahan tree. Those are the
That's
two,
the one you want to go to.
especially the Shanahan one. Jeez.
Yeah, for real.
We're gonna kind of cover. Let's go over, man. There's been a lot of changes. Obviously, there were how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams that were looking for head coaches. 6 of them have been filled. Let's kind of cover the ones that have been filled, and then let's talk about the 2 that are still missing. Obviously, the Chargers, like we talked about, we led the show with. Well, not the show, but this segment with hired by the Jim Harbaugh Chargers. Antonio Pierce is being brought back by the Raiders. Gerard Mayo was promoted from for the Patriots. Brian Callahan, offensive coordinator from the Bengals, is going
Go.
over to the Titans. Dave Canales, previous offensive coordinator for the Bucks, as we mentioned previously, is going to the Panthers. And as we obviously just recently talked about, Raheem Morris, previous defensive coordinator for the Rams, is going to the Falcons. The last 2 jobs are the Seahawks and the Commanders. If you were a head coach, which one would you want, or do you think one is better
Mm.
than the other?
Well, I guess it depends on how, and this is a weird way to say, but I think it depends on the age of the coach. Because if you want to win now, I think the Seahawks are in a better position because Geno Smith's not great, but he's not terrible at quarterback. If you are thinking more of a younger coach and long term building, I think the Commanders is a spot because they have a top pick, new organization being run by ownership. And
They
just
got John Lynch's freaking sidekick as their GM,
so
who
they have
obviously we see
somebody
what he did in
who
San Fran.
yeah, knows how to build. So I think depending on who you are and where you're going now, I do think the Seahawks had a second interview with Dan Quinn, who used to be their D coordinator before he left to go coach the Falcons, and then obviously the D coordinator for the Cowboys the last few years.
Good
So I
luck.
think that one might end up getting to him. But if I'm trying to pick which one, again, if I want to win now, I think Seattle's the closer of the two to winning now. But if you're a younger coach and you want an opportunity to build something and really kind of start from scratch, I think the Commanders makes the best spot because again, you have a top pick, you can get a quarterback, you can start to build an offense around that quarterback that you decide to build for the future. So it depends on what you're looking for as far as how old you are and what you want to do in coaching.
I couldn't agree more. Except to me, I think they're actually very similar in what they are because to your point about the Commanders, they have a really high draft pick and they're going to get one of not Caleb Williams, but get one of the best unless they trade up. I guess it's
Yeah, that's
possible.
true.
One of the best quarterbacks in this draft, which is what we're being told a heavily loaded draft. Now they also said that about the Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen draft. So can't really put too much stock into everything that the pros on TV are saying. But I couldn't agree more. I would prefer the Commander's job, which I think is basically laid out and they're waiting for the Lions to be done because it seems like offensive coordinator for the Lions, Ben Johnson, has pretty much got that in the bag from the reports that I've been seeing on the airwaves. So, which to be honest with you is I think is a great hire. He's obviously done wonders with the Lions offense. Now, they do have talent, so that is very helpful. It's not like
Yeah,
he's
but
turning Baker Mayfield into a Pro Bowler. Jared
true. But a
Goff
lot of
has
that
been to a
talent
Super
is
Bowl.
young.
Exactly. That's true. I mean, Laporta and Gibbs are literally rookies. Amon-Ra has only been in the league, 2 or 3 years. So it's not and I forgot who the Josh Reynolds or something like that off the top. He's been hurt for like a whole year, so he's really only played like 1 year too. So very good point. Panay Sewell, their best tackle, has only been in the league for like 2 years. So they do have a lot of young talent, which is something that they're going to definitely try to build over in
I was just
Washington.
gonna say that
They have Terry McLaurin and Brian Robinson. They have Josh Dotson, and hopefully a brand new quarterback that they're going to be drafting out of college this year. So I think it's perfectly slated for him. But I like your take on that. A little bit more win now for the Seahawks, a little bit more future building for the Commanders. But to be honest with you, I think these probably besides the Chargers, in my opinion, the best job in the market was the Commanders, and that really is because of that top pick and the change in ownership. Tell me what Magic Johnson touches doesn't turn to gold. Tell me what.
God, every single thing he buys into or is a part of, they tend to get into championships or just make and print money. So yeah, if I'm
Yep.
I'm I'm with you. And like, you know, the Commanders that being so young, like you said, with him being able to build an offense that now Goff is not young. He's obviously a veteran and knows what he's doing. But again, all the
Mm-hmm.
weapons around him are very young and able to kind of get them in the right direction and to an NFC title game, which no one had them before the
No.
season started. I think the Commanders makes the best position for Johnson.
A lot of people had them losing to the Rams in round one just because they thought, Matt Stafford and Sean McVay, they're gonna come over here and do. I mean, I might kind of one of them. So,
Yeah.
but they've surprised everybody. They surprised everybody.
And we talk about the Seahawks being in win now compared to the Commanders. It makes sense too, because say the Niners don't win, they're going to be in cap hell and have to kind of resituate their whole thing. And with Purdy
Got to
being
pay
in
Chase
flux
Young.
quarterback, the Rams are going to be back and good. But again, Stafford's a year older, and Cooper Kupp, who knows if he's ever going to be the same? He was not nearly as good this year.
They got Puka, bro. What you mean? They don't
I
need
know.
Cup.
I'm
I'm
not
just
saying
kidding.
Puka's not bad, but I just another year of figuring those guys out and having tape on them will definitely help. And again, Stafford's getting older, and if he gets one or two big hits, he could miss a couple games, and that changes the whole outlook of the Rams season. And the Cardinals are, kind of in that weird. We don't know
Cardinals.
how we're going to look next year with
Yeah, we
Murray
suck.
at quarterback.
Get Marvin Harrison, baby.
So I think the Seahawks one again is a more win now, and then the Commanders are more of a like long term build.
Agreed. There's been some open general manager roles too. Let's go over some of them that have been filled, and there's still two openings, including the one with in San Diego. Or sorry, there I am again in freaking for the Chargers. The Raiders hired Tom Telesco, which he's from where? I forgot where he
The
with the
Chargers the last 11 years, I think.
yes, the Chargers.
He knows
Yes,
how to
who
draft.
they done pretty well, I think. Yeah. So that one's a good. Commanders got Adam Peters again, right hand man for I was gonna say Kyle Shanahan for John Lynch over in San Francisco, and the Panthers got Dan Morgan, who was basically just promoted from his assistant general manager role. He's got a tough task at hand
Oh
because
my
the previous general manager traded everything away for Bryce Young, and now he's got to build through free agency and all that kind of stuff. Couple open roles though. Got Chargers and the Patriots still open. It's going to be interesting because whoever takes the Chargers job has to really align with whatever John Harbaugh wants or Jim
God.
Harbaugh wants. So
Yes. And you have to
it's
think
going
that was part of the interviewing process with Jim was like, okay, if we do hire you, like who are you looking at as far as like maybe having a say in who we bring in as the GM? Because again, you want them to be on the same page because that was part of the reason he ended up leaving San Francisco. Him and the GM at the time did not see eye to eye on some decisions and ultimately ran him out of town. So I would think that's part of the process of hiring him is like, okay, these are the people we're thinking about hiring. I think they were talking about interviewing the guy from Baltimore who you mentioned last week on our episode of
that's
that's
what
the
I
guy they
think.
should bring in. So obviously with Harbaugh and his brother being in Baltimore, there'd be a
Oh, I
lot
didn't
of
even think about that part. Yeah,
connection there, yeah, knowing what they expect and how to build something. So that's the one I think makes the most sense. I
that's a
don't know
good
who's
one.
going to be the GM for the Patriots. There was talk of John Robinson, who used to be in the organization and was the Titans GM before they fired him at the end of the year and a half ago. So I wouldn't be shocked if John Robinson goes that back there because again, familiarity with the organization and kind of how they do things. But without Bill Belichick being the guy who makes the last
The
ultimate
last
decision,
decision.
I
He'll
think
actually have some
Robinson did a
freedom.
great job in Tennessee. The only thing that he did bad was he didn't re-sign Brown and then traded him to Philadelphia, which turned out to be a really bad idea.
He's a sneaky agent for Philly. Y'all give all your best players to them. I don't know what it is. I'm surprised you didn't trade King Henry there, to be honest with you.
I really wanted him to get traded to Baltimore. That's what I wanted to happen.
That would have been a freaking. How do you
Right?
stop that? Oh
That
my
would have been perfect.
gosh.
And Callahan, when he was doing his press conference, I think today for the Titans, even said he's not against bringing Henry back because who would not want to bring him back in any offense? So don't
I
count
don't
him
know if
out
Henry wants
coming
to
back
be
yet. I
back.
think it's not gonna happen, but it is possible.
Yeah, and the only reason I think it's not going to happen is not because of the money or not because of the organization, but I think Derrick Henry wants to explore his options.
Yeah, and win now.
The Titans have been good. They've gone far with him, so it's not like he hasn't experienced the postseason. It's not like he's riding with the Jets his whole career, or
Yeah, for real.
sitting in the dumpster in Arizona or something like that, right? It's he's had some success, nothing too
Ooh.
great though. So I know that he's gonna want to
Derrick
explore.
Henry to the Chargers if they can do it because I know their running back. What's the guy's name?
Eckler,
Eckler.
Austin
He's
Eckler,
going to be a
free
free
agent.
agent. I know he didn't really like how things went last year. If they can bring Henry in because Harbaugh's going to build that offensive line big, he's probably going to draft some Michigan guys.
Oh,
That
of
would be a
course,
good spot for Henry to end up if they can get him.
that's a great pick. That's a great pick. I like that. I like that. Couple other notes real quickly. Packers did fire their defensive coordinator Joe Barry. They were a top 10 scoring off our defense this year, but most of the year they were 28th in like rushing yards per game. I think they were like 30th in passing yards per game. They were
Yeah,
towards the
got to
bottom
make
of the
some
barrel,
changes.
and yeah, and didn't quite get it done against San Francisco. Especially, you know what it probably was that last drive. They're like, all right, we just need this one stop, and they're like, all right, go ahead and score. So that didn't happen because yeah, so that's something else. So side note there. Bengals also promote their quarterback coach Dan Pitcher, sorry, because Brian Callahan is obviously with you guys now. Promote the quarterback coach Dan Pitcher to the offensive coordinator job.
Just continuity thing more
He's
than
been
anything
around.
else.
Yeah, why not? I mean, he's probably learned everything they knew. Burrow's probably really comfortable with him, obviously as the quarterback coach. So,
Yeah, and
eh,
who's the coach in I can't think of it. Zach
Zach
Taylor.
Taylor.
He had nothing but good things to say about Callahan, even though Callahan didn't call the plays when it came down to it for game day, but he was a really big part of the game plan for each week. So maybe Dan Pitcher was also in those meetings and showed a lot of promise and maybe can kind of fill that role. But again, ultimately, Zach Taylor's the one who makes the calls. So just another guy to learn from and ultimately maybe move on in another year or two, depending on how the Bengals look when Joe Burrow's back.
Exactly. Moving on off the field and onto the hard court. Got some NBA stuff going on. The biggest story, obviously, it honestly came out of nowhere, dude. I
Ooh,
don't understand it, but
I'm with
we'll
you.
get into all the details here. Milwaukee Bucks firing head coach Adrian Griffin after starting 30-13 this season, which at the time was second in the East and tied for second overall in the league. This is a head scratcher, no?
Big time because it was his first year as coach. It's not like he's been there 3 years and all of a sudden they decided like get out. One, two, they're 30-13, and like you said, second in the East. It's not like they're struggling now. Their defense has not been nearly as good, but that also could be due to the
Drew
fact that they
Holiday.
traded Drew Holiday for Damian Lillard, who doesn't play defense as well. So I get
Hmm.
it, but the reports are that he kind of lost the locker room. Apparently, the report states that Griffin told Buck stars the sacrifice was required during an airing out session after they lost to the Pacers in the in-season tournament. So I would think this has something to do with just Dame or Giannis not seeing eye to eye with him. There was a clip, I think, too, of the last game or two before they fired him that there's Giannis is on the sideline like drawing a play on a piece of paper or a board. So that's not good. If he's drawing stuff up, it kind of looks like LeBron back in the day with David Blatt, where it was just like,
Yeah.
I don't trust this guy. I don't think he knows what he's doing. He's got to go. Now, that's not what the GM came out and said during the press conference, that Giannis was the reason this has happened, which why would he say that? He's never going to
No,
do that.
yeah. Right.
But I think the more interesting fact is they're bringing in Doc Rivers, which I don't even know. Is that the best option they can come up with?
I mean, you and I were talking about this before the show. There's no real way to look up online available NBA coaches, but to me, it's just a name. The weird part, and obviously the whole story behind this, is that he's been an advisor to the team and to Adrian Griffin throughout this season. And after going 30-13, is he whispering over to the gym like, "Hey, I know this guy's killing it, but you know who could probably do better? Me."
Me.
It's so weird. I don't, and it has nothing to do with Boston or the Clippers, which wow, he actually coached two of my least favorite teams. Um, I just don't think he's that great of a coach.
I
You
agree.
mentioned it. There's nobody that's hung on to a championship more than that damn '08 Celtics team, including the players and Doc himself. He's ridden to so many different places because of one chip. He's had Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer, and he's got one. I don't think so. I said it without even seeing the clip, but you had mentioned the comparison that was made. I said it, I thought it was unique, but you found a clip that was, to me, he's like Mike McCarthy, right? He is a name that had one title with a star, and now he's just gets to, stay and do and get the biggest job in the NFL. If you consider, the Cowboys the biggest job, obviously the largest market, biggest team.
Mhm.
And he's just kind of riding previous success of one thing to get kind of all these jobs. Again, Clippers with Showtime, Lob City, Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George, Sixers with with Embiid, and I know it was a weird situation, but eventually got Harden. Nothing.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm with you. It's that '08 team. And the worst part is to me about it too is when they lost in 2010 to the Lakers, Kendrick Perkins got hurt in game 6, didn't play game 7, and docking them, "Oh, well, we didn't have Perkins in game 7." Yeah, well, in 2008 when you beat the Lakers, they didn't have Andrew Bynum the entire series or Trevor Ariza. So that's two big pieces that helped them win in 2009 and then Andrew Bynum as well in 2010. So I don't want to hear anything about that. There's no excuse there at all. I don't want to hear it. But you're right. He's coached so many Hall of Famers. And as you said that, not just like one Hall of Famer on each team he's been on. It's been
No.
2, if not 3 Hall of Famers, if not 4, if you include Rondo in Boston at the time now, looking back.
Yeah,
Like,
he wasn't
it's
then, but yeah.
crazy. And the biggest thing is you talked about, just a name and not anything else. The record speaks for itself. His NBA, okay, these are crazy stats. I know you pulled
Yeah.
them up, but I have to just get them out.
Go.
He has lost 32 closeout games in the playoffs, lost 7 series when leading 3-2, a couple of them 3-1, I think, with the Clippers in the bubble. 10 game 7s he's lost, and he's lost 12 series after holding a lead in that series at some point. What is and not only that, he wasn't
Including
even
just last year.
Yeah, and not only that,
With the Sixers.
And sitting on the sideline doing broadcasting stuff this year. Like, what has he learned in that 2 months that he was on the sideline doing? I just don't understand.
I don't know.
The best part to me, or at least not best part, but one of the funny things is when they came back on ABC the night, Mike Breen and Doris Burke, who was his CEO he was a part of, Mike Breen was like, thank you for the weeks of service that you gave us. Like, he didn't even stay very long there. And like you talked about, the weird thing is he was advising Adrian Griffin. Did he not, like you said, whisper to the organization, like, I think I could do better. Like, just get rid of him. So maybe that is part of it. I don't know. But again, it's not like Doc. Again, there's just 2 Hall of Famers on this team now with Dame and Giannis. So again, more Hall of Famers to coach. Is he going to ultimately get past the team in the playoffs? And if you're the Sixers, you got to be sitting there thinking, "Oh, I hope we play the Bucks in the playoffs," because we know that Doc is not going to have them ready. And Nick Nurse has won a title, I don't know, in the last 4 or 5 years, not 15 years ago at this point, 16 really going on. It's just I don't get it. I don't understand why they brought Doc in, but I'm with you that why isn't there a list of available free agent coaches for the NBA? I can't find it anywhere. But we talked about earlier when we were getting ready, excuse me, that Terry Stotts was brought in as an assistant coach before the season started after they traded for Damian Lillard because he coached Dame in Portland for a long period of time, even
Oh
getting
yeah,
them to
yeah,
the
yeah.
conference finals. He quit before the season even really got started. That had to have been a sign that something was off in that locker room looking back at that now.
Yeah, looking back for sure. At the time, you just might say, okay, he just wants to do something else, or he
Yeah.
doesn't feel like I'll have a big role. Maybe he just kind of wants to do something. But yeah, now that you kind of connect the dots, you're just like, oh yeah. The only thing that I would say, and I think in my rebuttal to you was maybe he should have just stayed on because then he could have just been the head coach, right? He would have
Completely right.
moved up
He
into the
already
head
knows
coaching
Dame
position.
and his, defensive, not very good on the defensive
Weaknesses.
side, but can make the team as a defense better. And maybe Griffin didn't want to listen to him, and maybe that was part of the reason that the locker room kind of lost it as well with him. I don't know, but Doc seems like the worst idea for me if I'm Milwaukee. But hey, that's not my problem.
They to me they are no longer a contender now. They are. I didn't know Adrian Griffin, but that's good. I know Doc Rivers blows it. Up 2-1 against the Celtics, up 3-2 against the Celtics. You got a game 6 at home. L.
Yep.
Got to go on the road and see what you can do. Fat L.
Yep.
They just lose up in the bubble. LLL. 3 L's in a row. What does he do well besides hang on Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, and Rajon Rondo, and all their talent? What else does he do well? Nothing, in my opinion. He is not a great coach. I know you asked the question. So, do you think though that he's the best option for the Bucks? I'm assuming no.
No, they could have just left the interim coach. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. That's in Milwaukee, but he would have been just fine because he's already there. He has some continuity with the players, knows their strengths and weaknesses. He could have probably built on something. At least give him a week or two to kind of see if that's the way you want to go. And it's weird bringing a coach in the middle of the season, let alone from the announcing booth to the bench. I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
bizarre.
it's a big name too. It's a lot of distractions. Although the Bucks might have been happy about it. You saw their pregame before their first game after the Adrian Griffin fire. They were like dancing in like a little rain dance in the middle of the court. So apparently they were kind of stoked about it. But I guess we'll see how it plays out. I don't see it playing out well. Bucks, while they might have a good regular season because most Doc River teams do, they are going to lose depending on the matchup, first or second round, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I don't
I
I
would
don't think
think
it's going to go well at
I
all.
would think second round. They'll probably get out of the first. Now it might be 6 or 7 games and they struggle to
Not if they
get
play the
through it.
Heat.
But that's a good point. I didn't think about that. And the Heat are
That's why I said depending on who they play.
That's true. That's a good point. And you mentioned the Heat too. I mean, the trade season apparently has already started. The Heat made a random deal the other day I did not see coming until about 12 hours before it started being a rumor, and then it said it was done. They trade for Terry Rozier from the Hornets.
Scary Terry.
They unload Kyle Lowry and his $29 million, and then a protected first round pick goes to Charlotte. There's obviously talks that Lowry's not going to stay in Charlotte. He wants to be playing for a contender. So they're either going to try to flip him before February 8th deadline, or if he gets bought out, he'll end up signing somewhere else. But I think the Heat, Terry Rozier is a perfect player for that organization and that team. He kind of fits that whole Heat culture thing. I think within that scheme, how they play team defense. And, Butler's been in and out of the lineup. I think Terry gives them a little more offensive punch when he's not there. And when he is there, he is a young guy who can play defense and be up in your face. When he was in Boston in the playoffs those couple years, he was, as you said, scary Terry, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because they had a stat right when he got traded. The Bucks. I'm sorry. I'm still irritated with stupid Doc Rivers because I kind of like the Bucks, man. I like Giannis and I like
Yeah.
Dame, and I just think they've freaking ruined it, dude. I just don't think he's a good coach. Anyways, I know we're moving on. The Heat. The basic quote was like, "Yeah, the Heat were tired of getting cooked by Terry." Apparently, dude was averaging like 27 anytime he played the Heat, and they just roll. The sad part is, with him in his first game, they did lose. So not necessarily the best start. But again, it's more. This is about more than just one game. This is about adding another big offensive piece instead of completely relying on old Lowry or gets tired Butler. So I think it's good. I think it's good overall. Again, he seems like a hard worker. Been grinding in Charlotte, doing absolutely nothing for some time. So I'm sure he'll be happy to be on a stage. It doesn't have to be. There's no stage in Charlotte, so he'll be on a stage at least in Miami. So I think it's a good. I think it's good for everyone all around. You had a fun note because one of the things that you were talking about was Kyle Lowry, especially if he is bought out and not traded somewhere. There is some sort of something about teams that he can't go to.
Yeah. So typically when somebody gets bought out in the past, they're open to sign with everybody once they clear waivers, which most of the time they do because they're not going to go to a team they don't want to play for. But with the new tax rules and aprons that they put in, if you're over the salary tax or salary cap, you can only sign with certain teams. So there's 7 teams I believe he cannot sign with if he is bought out. The Warriors, Clippers, which I was shocked because I figured with him playing with Kawhi back in the day in Toronto, that's where he'd end up, but not going to be possible. The
Good.
Celtics, the Suns, the Bucks, the Heat, obviously, since he was just there, and the Denver Nuggets. Now, those teams, because they're over the cap as much as they are, they're only able to sign somebody who gets bought out who's making $12 million or less. Well, Lowry's making 29, so not possible. So
Not
it'll be
close.
interesting to see where Lowry ends up. Obviously, it'll be a contending team
I'll
of
take
some
him.
sort. I was going to say one of the rumors is the Lakers, which if you're the Lakers, if you can get him for free on a buyout option, totally
Done.
worth it to have him there, especially if Gabe Vincent's not going
Done.
to play at all this year anyway.
Who?
Yeah,
Who's
exactly.
that? Oh,
Another
we have that
former
guy on our team. I haven't seen him at all.
I mean, he's
Fucking
getting
A.
paid. He's not doing anything, but he's getting paid. But
Yeah,
yeah, so it'll be
$11 million
interesting to
to
see
freaking pass a ball at practice.
where
Sorry.
Lowry ends up. But I wouldn't be shocked if even if he does get traded from Charlotte to somewhere else, he's making 29 million. So no contending team is going to be able to somehow get a $29 million guy in there. They're going to wait for him to get bought out. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
Yeah, nobody wants to trade for that contract, especially because that's a lot. You have to piece together almost $30 million in players going out
Yes.
for Kyle Lowry coming back. I think it's this last year of his contract. You're not gonna waiver any of that. So
No.
he most likely won't be able to be traded unless I just don't see that happening. He's gonna be bought out, and he'll be free to choose where he wants to go. It'll be interesting because I think I wouldn't say he's underrated, but people overlook him. I'll put it that way. I think he is a good piece to have on a team. I don't think he should be a main piece, but I think
Correct.
it'd be kind of good to add to like what I'm thinking, like maybe a Lakers team who, we got Braun, AD, got Austin, but him coming off the bench, running that second unit, dropping threes like crazy, being gritty, bringing some of that Heat culture over. But although here's the thing, Heat guards coming from LA. Now he's making a stop in Charlotte, so maybe that kind of erases the bad mojo because we got Kendrick Nunn who didn't do shit. We got Gabe Vincent who's not doing shit. So I don't want to get Kyle Lowry and have him not do shit. I guess
No,
is
I'm
all
with
I'm
you
saying.
there. But if you think about it, I feel like Lowry's the better version who actually knows how to win when it comes down to it of Pat Beverly. He does all the
Oh
like, little
yes, that
grimy
could
stuff. He
shoot.
gets a lot of charges called against the other team. He can shoot a little bit. He can run an offense when needed. But again, not every day, not a starter. I think anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, he would be a perfect role player for some team that's trying to make a title run.
I could see that. I could see that for sure. Going to his stats right here for such a short guy, he averages four rebounds a game for a
Yeah, that's
6 foot
pretty good.
guard. So to your point of being gritty, he's down to follow his shot. If someone else is shooting, he'll try to grab boards. He'll get down and dirty and try to get things done. I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'd be a perfect backup point guard for D'Angelo Russell to come in, run the offense when LeBron and AD want to not have the ball run through them and just kind of get everybody moving. I think it'd be a perfect situation. But again, we'll see when he gets bought out where he ends up wanting to go because
Yeah, only
Lakers
as a
right now are only
buyout.
500. So
Woo! I'll take it. That was a big win though last night. D'Angelo does not want to get traded. I know we
no,
haven't
he
talked
does
about
not.
it, but he was going off, which, to be honest with you, has been plenty of people in the NBA recently. D'Angelo
Right.
hasn't been going off like some of the names that we're going to talk about, but dude couldn't miss from behind the arc. He was getting the ball. I saw the replays, bro. He was getting the ball like in the weirdest position. Just throw it up, splash. Throw it up,
Yeah.
splash. From almost the logo, like 34 feet, I think I saw on Sports Center, splash. So he definitely doesn't want to get traded. But we got to talk about some of the scoring that's been going on in the NBA.
Yeah.
2 nights ago was the last, no, Monday night. Monday night on the anniversary of Kobe scoring 81, which was our show where we talked about that little mini segment of This Week in Sports History. And B dropped 70. Cat that same night dropped 62. And it's been, I think Tatum dropped 40 that night. People have just been dropping 50 and 60 like left and right, bro.
Yeah, it's getting out of control. And not only that, it continued tonight. Before we got on here, we saw Luka had 73 and Booker had 62. Like it's just every other night or every couple nights, somebody's scoring, like you said, 40 or 50 or more. It's just the defensive hand checking not being allowed and the way teams just run up and down the court. It's very, and the way I want to think about it, it kind of makes it very arcade style if you're talking about like playing it on a video game. Most people who
True.
play online just run up and down and try to shoot as many threes and get as many buckets. If you slow down and run an offense and actually do some pick and roll and some dialed up plays, the scoring might be a little further down and the defense has to react to what's happening instead of just not being able to touch one guy. And not only that, you talked about Booker had 62 tonight. Suns still lost. Cat had 62 the other night. The Wolves still lost. So even though the guys are scoring a bunch, it doesn't necessarily compute to a win every single time.
No, in fact, the T Wolves coach was pissed about it. In his post game presser, he kind of talks about it because there was reports that the team was asking some of the assistants to keep up with what Embiid had scored that night because they
Oh,
wanted to feed Cat and have Cat score more.
dang! I did
They
not know that part.
they weren't worried about the game. They were worried about stat padding and stat watching instead of actually getting the win. We do have a clip of the head coach. I forgot his name, but he's actually a really good coach in my opinion. We have a clip of him in the post game presser, kind of talking about the game afterwards.
Chris, what happened in this one to let it slip away?
Well, I mean, it was an absolute disgusting performance of defense and immature basketball. All the way through the game. So it really didn't slip away. It had been there from the jump. So this is what happens when you have this type of approach.
You saw that from the beginning of the game right through the
For sure, yeah.
How do you go about trying to right the ship when you see it's like that from minute one?
I kept, imploring them to try to compete and play some defense, switching back between man and zone, anything to contain the ball. Push it, get up on the shooters. Just messages weren't getting through. So
it seemed like all season when Carl or Ant start the first quarter off and just scoring a lot of points, and it's coming pretty easy. That leads to the team's worst basketball.
Yeah.
How do you address that? Because there are going to be quarters where it's good when they start out hot, but not have it lead to bad team basketball from there.
I mean, listen, you're spot on. I mean, there's lots of times when just because you've scored 2 or 3 or 4 points in a row or baskets in a row, it doesn't, obviously we're going to try to feed a hot hand, look for a hot hand, but at some point we got to get back to making the right play. We got to get back to doing the right things. That's just, like I said, there's a lot of ways to be immature. There's always a lot of ways to be immature. And there was a lot of immature performances here throughout the roster. We totally disrespected the game ourselves, and we got exactly what we deserve. So
that was Chris Finch expressing his irritation with the team. He even said it towards the end there. They just disrespected the game, and they got what they deserved. They weren't playing to win. They weren't trying to play legitimate basketball. They were just trying to feed a storyline of Cat versus Embiid for some reason, which nobody sees them on the same level. Maybe the teammates in the T-Wolves organization, Embiid maybe literally, but also figuratively towers over Cat. He's a way better all-around player. Obviously had won an MVP. Cat's been in the league longer and hasn't even gotten close to a conversation. So, but yeah, they lose. Booker loses. You found actually a stat earlier when we were talking about it. And I'm going to shout out the homie we were talking to. 3 and 4 in the 7 games that Booker has scored 50 plus. So he is, as Loft says, there's way too much hype for this dude for nothing.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. When we were prepping and Loff and I were talking about it, I was just like, I wonder how many times he's scored a bunch of points and what the team has done because they lost tonight. So we were able to look it up. 3 wins, 4 losses when he scores 50 or more. Then it's not the best thing for the team to go off and score 50. And one of those, he scored 70 against Boston a couple years ago, and they still lost. So I don't see the point of going off like that if it ultimately doesn't get you a win. It's got to be more team-oriented. And like you talked about, Cat and them played against the basketball gods. It came back to bite them.
To your point, though, about the arcade style or NBA 2K way, I don't necessarily think we need to go back to the 80s where people are scoring in the 80s. I do like some scoring, but I think the early 2000s to mid 2000s, like anywhere up to 2012 probably, was like peak NBA. There was still some defense. They had already taken out the hand check. Is this just people are that skilled, or is it that people just don't play defense?
I think it's a little bit of both because if you think about it, when kids are playing in Little League and all the way through high school and stuff now, they're taught to basically what is your specialty and just focus on that. If you're a shooter,
that's true.
And just shoot. Like you don't get an all-around game like they used to when they were younger and playing. Because I remember when I played at practice, we did a little bit of everything at practice. We did defensive drills, we did shooting drills, we did offensive drills on game plans and out of bounds plays. Like it's just not the way it is. If they find a specialty for you and what you're good at, you just focus on that and you don't do anything else. So by the time you get to the pros, you don't know how to play the game as a whole. You know how to do your specialty in your role, but that's not necessarily good for the team or the game itself. So I think it's just a different way of playing. And I think they talked about the Warriors when they started, changing the way the game was played with all the 3-point shooting. They were the number 1 team in offense. today's game and age, you look at the numbers of what they put at that time when they were number one, they'd be like middle of the pack, 15, 16 in the league. So the scoring has completely changed, and it's all about the offensive side, and there's really not a whole lot of defense being played on most teams.
I just think that any piece of I'll agree with you a little bit, but I think that any piece of contact is a foul. So you can't even like, what is the point? If you just want us to play air games where we can't, get physical with it, then just say that. I think it's a little too overblown on the whistle. But that's what the league wants. The league wants 141 to 132 in regulation. Like, those were unheard of numbers when we were growing up, dude. 140, you're like, damn, that triple overtime? Like, how did that even happen? Now it's every freaking day. We had a podcast a couple episodes ago where there was 5 teams that scored over 140 points on the same day. It's just becoming a regular. So I do think it's a little bit of both, like you said, but they just need to allow some defense, man. Like, it will make the game, in my opinion, better, because I don't watch the All-Star game for this exact reason.
Oh my God, no.
It's 180 to 178, and you're just like, what is the point? It's just a layup line or just a 3-point show, or nobody plays defense. Now, I get why they do it there. Nobody wants to get hurt, right? So I get that. But every other regular season game, huh? Yeah, exactly. It's become the norm in a regular season game. Not everybody's an all-star. Let's go freaking play. So I wish they would get back to a little bit more defense, but yeah. Agree with Loft though on Booker, man. I think he's a little overrated. I hope he does not make the USA team. Corey and I are actually gonna discuss. Make sure you're tuned into, I think, our next episode. We're gonna discuss. They've announced the 41-man openings, I guess you could say, for the Team USA for the French Olympics coming up. Corey and I are going to try to give our starting 12 or our selected 12 to be on the team. So make sure you check out that one. But last little bit of shout out to our number 1 listener, Laffy. Appreciate you.
Always, sir.
Off the hard court, and we're going to get into the baseball diamond. Couple notes. There's been a handful of signings, but we're going to start with honoring the past. The Major League Baseball announced the 2024 Hall of Fame class. There was 3 people voted in here, but we're going to include the 4th one, who was selected by, I believe you confirmed, the Veterans Committee back in December. So the first 2 I'll take, and then if you want to kind of grab the next 2, we'll go from there, yeah?
Sounds good.
The first one we got here is Adrian Beltre, longtime player, played a total of 21 Major League seasons. The Dodgers, Mariners, Red Sox, Rangers. Kind of a goofball, but also very, very serious and very, very good at his job. Won 5 Gold Glove Awards at third base. He also won 4 Silver Sluggers, earned 4 All-Star selections, and at the time of his retirement in 2018, he was the only third baseman in Major League Baseball history with over 3,000 career hits and 400 home runs. He already has his number 29 retired by the Rangers. That was done in 2019. So props to Mr. Beltre.
Absolutely.
Any notes? Any comments?
I mean, like you said, just a fun guy, but also very serious at the same time. One of the highlights that comes to mind is when he got thrown out of the game because he was too close to he wasn't on the on-deck circle pad.
And he
was
moved
too
it
close to home plate, so he picked it up and moved it, and then they threw him out of the game. That's like one of the best highlights. And then the second one is when he was going against Felix Hernandez because he played with him in Seattle. When he was in Texas and he's going up against him, Hernandez threw this nasty curveball, and Beltre had this like half swing, like, crap, what am I doing? And then Felix just bends over laughing at him, and Beltre's laughing as he's walking back to the dugout. It's, again, a lot of fun and a good guy. And yeah, third base, he was one of the best, if not the best at third base all time.
The hot corner, bro. Yeah, so good. So good.
But don't touch his head.
No. Todd Helton, another one that was just inducted in. This was actually his 6th year on the ballot. He actually just fell short last year at 72.2% of the vote, which you need 75% of the writers to agree. So expected that he was kind of able to break through in this year, and he did. He spent his entire 17-year career with the Rockies, who obviously did nothing, but he was good. He won a batting title in 2000, 5-time All-Star, finished with 2,519 hits, 369 home runs, and a career batting average of 316, man. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, there was a lot of not controversy, but talk of like if he should be in or not, because the fact that he played in Colorado kind of elevates a lot of those numbers. You said he did nothing. He did go to one World Series in 2007 where the Rockies got swept by the Red Sox. So he did have a postseason run at least once. But yeah, 316 average, regardless of playing in Colorado or not. Batting over 300 for a season is great, let alone your career 316. So, I mean, well deserved, but also, again, a little bit more discussion of if he was actually really a Hall of Famer or not.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they're not starting to bend the rules on who they get in. I feel like they don't because they don't let anybody from the freaking steroid era really get in. So,
True.
um, but yeah, I mean, props to him. He was one of. I mean, there was another person that was in Colorado, wasn't there? That was decent
Uh,
during his time, or no? Am I
it,
remembering? I feel like he
during
had.
Helton's like run, or because I know
Yeah.
Matt Holiday was there with him when they went to the World Series. That was the other
Okay,
guy.
maybe that's probably who I'm talking about. Yeah, Holiday and Helton back to back. Yeah, I think that's who I was talking about. All right, so who are the other two, my friend?
Well, the other one is Joe Mauer, catcher from the Minnesota Twins. Spent his entire 15-year career there. Obviously, the city itself and the fans of the Twins absolutely love him. Another one, they retired his number back in 2019, number 7. He was an American League MVP in 2009, won 3 AL batting titles, 6 All-Star appearances, 5 Silver Slugger awards, 3 Gold Gloves at catcher. He did end up
That's
switching
nice.
to first base at the end of his career since he
Those
had.
knees.
Yeah, exactly. As a catcher, you kind of get beat up. I think a big part of why he was able to get into the Hall too is a catcher. I mean, they're not usually very offensive on that side of baseball. It's usually just more the defensive side. But again, 5 Silver Sluggers and
He's
6 All-Star
dangerous.
selections, 3 Gold Gloves defensively too. He was solid. I think you remember. I remember you saying a stat. Something maybe it wasn't you. I don't remember who. Something
Yeah, it
about
was me. It was me.
you.
I was about to
Okay,
say
what was
that.
it about the strikeout thing?
So during his retirement in 2019, I believe it was, or maybe it was the most recent announcement that he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm thinking it was the jersey retirement. So in 2019, when he was having his jersey retired in Minnesota, Minnesota actually found the one player to strike out Joe Mauer in high school. Yes, Joe Mauer struck out one time in high school. The Twins found him and brought him to the game for a nice little laugh. Obviously, Joe probably remembered who it was. But the fact that you struck out once
4
in
years.
high school is nuts, dude. Nuts. Dude was amazing on offense. Obviously was insane behind the plate. Gold gloves, batting titles. Winning an MVP as catcher, in my opinion, is kind of hard. Most of the time it goes to crazy bats and people who are in the field and or pitchers. So
Well, think
props
about
to
it
that.
too. As a catcher, you're involved in every single pitch. It's not like a position player where, and you play a game, you might get 3 balls hit to you the entire 9 innings. When you're a catcher, everything's coming to you. Then there's plays at the plate and pass balls and all that kind of stuff. So the Gold Glove as a catcher is a huge thing, and to have 3 of them is huge. Now the Twins didn't win a World Series while he was there. They did get to the ALCS in 2002. Ultimately lost to the Angels, who had Adam Kennedy go off in Game 6 and end up getting the Angels to a World Series win. But again, the entire time he was there, I think. Can't remember who was the first baseman when he was younger at the catcher position, but they had a really good team. Torrey Hunter was in center field. They had a great run in Minnesota while he was in his youth. But again, another catcher with the way he played is awesome. Well deserved to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so since 1999, which is when Pudge, Ivan Rodriguez won. So that's over 25 years now. So in the past 25 years, catchers have only won twice. Joe Mauer, and I'm sure you could probably maybe guess the other one.
MVP, a catcher. Buster Posey?
Yes.
Of course.
So those are the only two. So in the more recent times, Joe Mauer was one of the elite company.
Dang. Speaking of elite company, the fourth one that got in, which again was Veterans Committee voted, but Jim Leyland, who was the manager, he 3-time manager of the year, twice in the National League, 90 and 92, and once in the American League, 2006. Was the coach of the Marlins when they won the World Series in 1997, which is the famous one where Edgar Renteria is hitting that Game 7 walk-off win, and Craig Counsell is the one scoring the run. And then he also managed the United States national team when they won the 2017 World Baseball Classic. Led the team to their first gold medal finish. And then in 2023, that was when December, they elected him through the Veterans Committee into the Hall of Fame. I think the one thing that I always think about with Leyland, and most people have kind of probably talked about this at this point, is he was always a smoker and always smoking cigarettes. There's talk of back when he was coaching in the 90s when it was a little more not taboo to do that. He would go down into the clubhouse during the game, have a cigarette, and then come back into the club, to the bench and then continue managing. But yeah, just again, a coach that took multiple teams to the World Series. Obviously, they won with the Marlins in the 90s, and then he was the coach of the Tigers when they went in 2006 and lost to the Cardinals, and I believe in 2012 when they got swept by the Giants and Buster Posey. So just a great manager and had a great long career. I'm surprised he didn't get into the Hall of Fame sooner at this point.
Yeah, I know, right? There's not too many managers who have like that level of success. I mean, there's obviously Joe Torre with the Yankees. He's up there. Dusty Baker. I mean, there's some, right? But there's not Bruce Bochy. But they
Yeah.
don't have like, that level. So, props to Jim. I think he's
Yeah.
still alive too, so that's
Oh
good.
yeah. Yeah, he'll be at the ceremony this summer.
Nice.
Which before
So
we
that's
go
all.
on
That's
to the
the
signings, hold on.
yeah.
That's the one
Okay.
thing I think baseball screws up with. They do a lot of things right lately, but this is one thing I think they're doing a disservice to. Why is their Hall of Fame ceremony on a Saturday in the middle of the season while teams are playing games? How is that even promoting the thing itself? It should be on a weekend where there's no games, where it's the sole focus of the sport.
Before the
they made,
season, like the NFL, right?
yeah,
The
they
NFL Hall
made
of
the
Fame game.
announcement a couple days ago, but there's other guys being in, but like nobody even knew it was coming. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, they announced the Hall of Fame people. Like it's not as big a deal compared to other sports, especially like you talked about the NFL. It should be like the Friday before or the Thursday before MLB starts their season for the year. That way it's more of a focus and a way to start the year like the NFL does. That's one thing I don't get why MLB doesn't do as well.
That's actually a really good point. I never even thought about it like that because I guess I never paid attention to it.
That's
Obviously, it's very right. Exactly, it's very famous that the NFL has their Hall of Fame game. But yeah, I guess I never really thought about that. Who's the commissioner?
The worst commissioner in sports, Rob Manfred, man. Come on.
Why don't you call him up? Call him up. Let him know. Be like, hey, bruh.
Hey, Rob, I know you're out there listening, man. Change the Hall of Fame time. Let's go. Get it situated better.
Get it right. Get it right. That's actually that's a really good point. I like that. Thanks for bringing that up. We are going to move on though from the Hall of Fame. Congrats to the finalists, not the finalists, to the entrants this year. All 4 of them, most or all well deserved in my opinion. So congratulations. We'll move on to some of the signings. These are a little bit smaller. Obviously, we have no Shohei Ohtani's left or Yamamoto's. The billions have already been spent, but we got some good people that can definitely. I mean, that's the thing about baseball. You got to build an entire roster that plays for 162 games. So every little bit helps, right? Exactly. We're going to start with first baseman Rhys Hoskins, who agreed to a 2-year, $34 million contract with the Milwaukee Brewers. He has an opt-out after the first year. Would you like the signing?
I think it's a great signing. I mean, he played 6 years in Philly. He helped them, a big part of getting them to the World Series in 2022. I think in the NLCS, he had like 5 or 6 home runs just in that series alone. Last year, he didn't play. He tore his ACL in preseason or spring training. So I think a big part of it is he has had time to rest. And if he's healthy, I think in the middle of that Milwaukee lineup, which, last year they were just in the run for a playoff chase. Diamondbacks ended up beating them in the first round. Yeah, that's right. 2 games out of 3 on the road. But again, Milwaukee's always been competitive. Now they do have a new manager. Craig Counsell has moved on to the Cubs, so that'll be kind of different. But I think in the middle of that lineup with what they have, and they still have Corbin Burns at the top of the rotation, I think it's going to be a perfect fit. But if it doesn't work out very well, maybe at the trade deadline, if they're not competing, that's one of those guys they can move. And he does have an opt-out after the year. So if he's not having a great year, he can opt back in and get another $17 million on the second year. So I think it's a win-win for both sides at this point.
You said that he didn't play last year because of a torn ACL, but this past season he did, or the season before that, he was 30 home runs, 79 RBIs, and 794 OPS for the Phillies. That ain't bad.
That's what I'm saying. Healthy, he can definitely make a difference. And he is a first baseman, but if he's not healthy enough to play first base at the beginning of the year coming back from the surgery, then you can put him at DH because DH is in all of the league now. It doesn't matter if you're AL or NL. So you can kind of work him back into playing first base for the Brewers if you need to take that time.
Good point. Very good point. We're going to stay in the National League. This time we're going with the Nationals. Joey Gallo signed a 1-year, $5 million deal with Washington. He's got $1 million in extra incentives, so it could be up toward, or is that including, so would it be up to 6 or is that including?
It could be up to 6 if he did see incentive.
6, okay. Played for the Minnesota Twins last season, had 21 home runs and 40 RBIs in 111 games. Problem is he only hit 177. So he's kind of like a Kyle Schwarber, I guess, with a 741 OPS. He's either hitting it over the wall or he's getting out. So I guess we'll see how this kind of turns out. The Nationals, after they traded Soto away, it seems like, and their World Series win, they're kind of just like they have a team.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to fill the roster. I think this is kind of similar to the Aroldis Chapman deal that we talked about earlier in the week when he went to Pittsburgh on a 1-year deal. You get him in there. You have a veteran on a very young team. If he does pan out and hits, well, or gets a big home run mark, at least early, if the Nationals are not in the race at the deadline, you can trade him, get something for him. I think it's the best thing. And also, not only is he good offensively, he has won 2 Gold Gloves in the outfield in 20 and 21 when he was on the Rangers. So you can put him in the corner outfields if
That's
you need to. He
recent.
doesn't have to be just a DH. So I think that's part of it. It is funny though. I did see today the Nationals have another new uniform coming out. It's like a third alternate one, but it's not a button-up jersey. It's a pullover, which I thought was very interesting. It's kind of very similar to how they used to have some jerseys like that in the 70s. So it'll be interesting to see if other teams start to do that moving forward.
That's kind of cool. I like kind of switching it up. I mean, the baseball's got hundreds of years of different types of jerseys to kind of fall back on. You and I, we did a show where we talked about they did the Negro League game and they brought back some of the old school jerseys from those. Those were sick, dude. So
absolutely,
I kind of like the idea of kind of switching it up. But yeah, I mean, he Gold Gloves, like you said. Does like to walk, maybe, it did what is this, he walks and gets on base at a 323 career clip, so maybe get him on and move him over. I think it could be good, but again, I like your take on just another lower level team kind of getting an asset that might be movable at the deadline.
Yep, I think a lot of teams, if you're not competing or you're kind of on a younger side, you bring in a vet, see what can do, and then if it's not working out, like I said, you get something for him, even if it's some minor leaguer or whatever that doesn't end up panning out down the line, but it's an asset to then use again to get something else.
Another team that's not going to be competing is the Dodgers. I'm just kidding.
So we hope, at least.
Yeah, seriously. Left-handed pitcher James Paxton signed with the Dodgers, 1 year, $11 million. Got $1 million in bonus just for being on the opening day roster. Damn, they don't even trust him that much. They're going to give him $1 million just to show up. That's crazy.
Never know what's going to happen.
Opening day is not that far away. He also has another $1 million in incentives. Again, don't really care. Hope they do poorly. Finished 2023 with a 4.5 ERA, a 1.31 WHIP. That's actually pretty good, and 101 strikeouts over 96 innings and 19 different starts. He did have some elbow and knee injuries, but that was technically his best year since like 2019. You like this?
I mean, as a Diamondback fan, no, but as a baseball fan, I totally understand what they're doing. Like you said, he didn't play a lot last year. I mean, he had 19 starts, but it was kind of he started off really well early. I think his ERA was under 2.5 in the first month or so. Then the injuries kind of came, then he came back and only ended up pitching 96 innings. I think part of it too is now he's the only left-handed pitcher in the starting rotation for the Dodgers, which is kind of weird because they used to have so many lefties between Kershaw, Urias, and a couple other guys. So they had to bring in a lefty. And, the Dodgers always have these reclamation projects every year where they bring a guy in who's coming off of a subpar year or coming off of a Tommy John, and they give him a lot of money to we'll give you one shot and see what you can do. They always seem to push the right buttons on these guys and kind of rebuild them. So he'll probably end up having a decent year as long as he stays healthy for the Dodgers. But I did note, too, not only is he the only left-handed pitcher for the Dodgers, I think the Dodgers, Giants, and Padres combined only have 2 left-handed pitchers on their rotation, which will come up when we talk about another signing in a few minutes.
Yeah, very true. Plus, the other signing that we're going to reference is there's more than a couple lefties on the team besides the guy that just signed. The only thing that I would take away from the Dodgers, because you're right, it seems like they freaking do it. They did take a chance on Lance Lynn last year, and that luckily blew up for them because he was lit up during the postseason. Who did they get? Who did they lose to? And I know they made the postseason last year, but I don't
runs. I think that was in the desert against.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They got swept. That's
God,
right. That was
I know we're talking a lot of shit about that because of the way our season went last year, but I hope that doesn't come back to bite us this year in the summer.
That's all right. They spent $1 billion on 2 people. We can't keep up. It is.
That's because we swept them. That's the way I'm looking at it.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. Couple more signings, and then we'll get to the one that we want to talk about. Actually, one more signing. Right-handed pitcher Dave Robertson signs a 1 year, $11 to $12 million deal with the Rangers. Obviously, Rangers defending champs. Unfortunately, they beat us in the World Series, but it was fantastic that we even got there. So they're adding a little bit more fire to their bullpen. A 15-year career, 175 saves, and a 2.9 ERA.
It's pretty good. He was on the World Series winning team at the Yankees back in 2009, so he's got the championship pedigree. You mentioned he has 175 saves. He's been a closer off and on throughout his career, depending on what team he's on. He kind of bounces between a setup man and that. So I think going to the Texas Rangers, who already have their closer, he'll probably go more into the setup role, which they lost to Aroldis Chapman. So I think he kind of fills that void as far as the 7th or 8th inning guy. Mm-hmm. If you're the Rangers, you have to have a good bullpen. They know that because that's how they ended up getting a ring last year. I think it's a win-win all around. And unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. I just hope the Rangers don't face us in the World Series again. And if we do, I don't want Robertson to be part of us losing.
Right. Go Angels. And here's the last one, the one that Corey referenced in relation to left-handed pitchers for the National League West teams. Diamondbacks signed designated hitter Jock Peterson, former Dodger, former Giant, to a one-year deal, has a second-year mutual option. He's kind of looking to have a bounce-back year. He was good, wasn't he? Where else did he play before the Giants?
I think he was on the Cubs for a moment.
Okay, that's where he was doing. I feel like he was doing pretty good in Chicago, but had a pretty subpar year last year. When I found out about it, I texted you. I thought it was a pretty good signing. 1 year, you can't really go wrong. I know that we were looking for JD Martinez. We still might be able to hopefully add him, depending on how much he wants. He might be able to come back, but we need more hitting because all we did last year, which again, the Phillies had a tough time. Well, we had a tough time getting past the Phillies, because they could hit bombs. And everything we do is singles, doubles, base running, stolen bases, and try to go from there. Now, granted, you did mention the 4 straight home runs against Lance Lynn. But besides that, we were more of a chip it in kind of team. So trying to get some bigger bats. Yeah. I liked it.
I think it's a perfect fit. Not only did we need some more pop in the lineup, but we needed a left-handed bat because we're very right-handed heavy, especially in the middle of the lineup. Now, Christian Walker did have 30 home runs last year at first base for us, which is great. But again, needing some other guys, like you talked about, very contact-related team, speed on the base pass. But eventually you're going to need one of those guys to get you a big pop here and there, and I think this is perfect. He can platoon at DH with Lourdes Gurriel, who's coming back, who's a right-handed batter. Occasionally, if you need Christian Walker to DH, you can fit Jock Peterson in at first base if you need to. But again, I think just a left-handed bat with some pop is exactly what this team needed in the middle of the lineup to kind of change things up. Again, the Dodgers, Padres, Giants have 2 left-handers in their starting rotation combined, and he doesn't hit well against lefties. So that's a positive for the Diamondbacks. He's going to be facing a lot of righties when it comes to those division opponents. And I think in the long run, it's a 1-year mutual second year. I think it's a win-win for both sides. It gives him an opportunity to kind of recalibrate his value. And if the Diamondbacks are competing next year and he has a chance to, show it in the playoffs with us, I think it's a win-win for both sides as well.
Yeah, another lefty, obviously the one that I was referencing is Corbin Carroll. So that's pretty good to see that we only have a couple lefties to face, at least in division. Those were obviously most of the games are. Now, granted, not as many games as it used to be. Baseball has nicely redone the schedule, so we're not playing the Dodgers 57 times of the 162 games that we play. But yeah, that is definitely going to be good because as much as we'll probably be looking for a second place finish, depending on how the Dodgers obviously turn out and what the Giants do, because I don't think the Padres and the obviously Rockies aren't going to be doing much. No. We'll see. We'll see. So looking forward to it. Go Diamondbacks. Wanted to rock the hat today. Honestly, I'm only rocking
in the game of October. Anything can happen, as we saw last year. So let the Dodgers win the division all they want. Let's just get a wild card spot, and then we'll go from there and see what we can do.
Down. I am down. Oh, well, that was another marathon one, bro. I'm having fun though with all this talk because I just feel like there's so much that we can, kind of discuss, man. So I'm digging it. Absolutely. Of course, we're not done.
Nope, not yet.
We got our little ending segment. I know it's normally our Thursday segment, but again, it was gonna be our Saturday, so we decided to fit it right in the middle. It's gonna be our Friday ending segment. This week in sports history.
Let's do it.
This week in sports history. So this week in sports history, I know we just talked a ton of baseball, but we're gonna keep it active. There's obviously not much that happens in baseball in January because there's no baseball in January. So we're gonna take it back to the hard court. There was a couple things that were kind of cool that might have happened this week in football with the football playoffs and stuff, but we did cover obviously the Kobe Bryant 81 points from Monday. Today, unfortunately, is the 4-year anniversary of the tragic helicopter accident. So we're going to keep it with basketball. On January 23rd, 2015, Klay Thompson sets an NBA record for the most points in a quarter, a 37-point third period that powers the Golden State Warriors to a 126-101 win over the Sacramento Kings. Thompson makes all 13 shots and finishes with a career-high 52. I think you said that there was an extra caveat to that 37-point quarter, right?
Yeah, I was listening to ESPN LA the other day, and Michael Thompson, his father, was there because it was Laker game day, so he always kind of fills in. And they talked about not only did he have 37 in that quarter, I think he didn't take a shot or make a shot for the first 2.5 minutes of the quarter. So if you really think about it, he did that in about 9.5 to 10 minutes.
That is nuts, bro. That is nuts. Props to Clay. Dude's one of the best shooters ever. Obviously, back-to-back injuries has kind of derailed his career a little bit. He's kind of obviously on the back end. When you have lower body injuries in a sport like, well, I mean, really any sport, but definitely a sport like basketball, it's really hard to recover and get back to your old form. Just age alone is going to take it away from you, let alone the major, major injuries he had. So it was amazing to watch during that time frame. And yeah, good for him. That was January 23rd, 2015.
Man, forever ago.
Just 2 days later, January 25th, 2015. This is kicking it back to a reference that we made in our previous episode where the winningest women's coach of all time became the winningest coach of all time. Mike Krzyzewski on January 25th, 2015 earned his 1,000th career win, making him the first NCAA Division I men's coach to reach said milestone. Duke beat St. John's for a 77-68 victory, and he did so at Madison Square Garden because obviously that's where St. John's is in New York.
Man.
So what a great venue to kind of get your 1,000th win, being the only person, at least at the time. I don't know if anybody's passed him. I doubt it because I can't think of anybody who's been coaching that long that's still doing it. But that was fantastic, man. I thought that was a nice one, especially a little paying homage back to the I forgot her name, Vanderveer, the head coach of Stanford, who just became the winningest coach of all time. So yeah, that just recently happened.
For Shevsky to do it at Madison Square Garden of all venues. It would have been cooler, I guess, maybe to do it at home for the Duke Blue Devil fans. But I think Madison Square Garden, as the mecca of basketball, as they say, is a great venue to have it happen at.
Yeah, which is so weird to say. I mean, I get it, it's New York and all that kind of stuff, but what the hell have the Knicks ever done, especially recently? Not ever done, but what have they done recently? Like, I don't know, since I've been born.
Not a whole lot.
No. So, but that's weekend sports history. I know we have a handful of those. We got MILF Mondays on Monday. We got this weekend sports history towards the end of the week, depending on what day we do it. If you ever want to learn a little bit more, we got a bunch of other these. Check out any of our previous episodes. Where can they find those, man?
Yeah, remember you can find us on Spotify or Apple Podcast or even on YouTube if you want to see us and see the clips that we have made for you, and just by searching Our View from the Bench.
Also, don't forget to follow us, subscribe on YouTube, but don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at OurViewFTB. Besides the games this weekend, how is your weekend looking?
So I'm going to be working this weekend, of course, like typical times. Nothing tomorrow, basic day shift at the store. And then Sunday, I'm working a Bryan Adams concert. So I'll be settling that show and working that. Obviously, I was supposed to do 2 shows in 3 days, but Morrissey canceled tonight, so I didn't have to worry about it. So made the weekend a little easier. Got some things done around the house today while I had the day off, but back at the grind tomorrow and the rest of the weekend. How about you?
Not much tomorrow. I might go on a cruise. I haven't taken my car out in a minute. I have a daily, but I haven't taken my fun car out in a minute. Might be going on a cruise Saturday morning and then football Sunday. Honestly, also just recovering, dude. Still need to rest and get over this illness. So that's a pretty low key weekend for me. That's all I got going. So
what you got to do to get back to normal so you can feel better, man. It's been a long January for you.
Dude, it's been tough, man. So just want to get these antibiotics in, get some rest in, and honestly just feel better. So looking forward to feeling better, honestly. But we appreciate everybody stopping by, hanging out with us, and checking out things, seeing things from Our View from the Bench. I'm Brendan.
And I'm Corey, and like we always say, enjoy the sports until we talk again.
Peace.
This was a Sycamore 4th Studios production.